This is the 116 Life on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius Channel 154. I'm your host, Ace Harris, and I'm here with a very special, legendary guest, a very important person and friend to me, the incomparable, the amazing leader, speaker, pastor, communicator, soon-to-be author, father of many.
Come on.
And mentor to a lot more, Scott Free. What's up, man?
Come on, bro.
I had to give you them flowers,
man,
dog.
that was fire, bro.
Hey,
thank you, man.
I've been working on my podcast and interview, setups, you know what I'm saying? So hopefully that was,
brother.
was right.
That was amazing. It's an honor to be here, bro.
Man,
for real. This is really dope.
This feels like I'm talking to family, man.
That's what it is, man. We've known
you,
each other for a long time.
Definitely. I mean, we can definitely get into it, but for the people that don't know, tell them like your name, who you are, what you do, and why is it so important for you to be here, and why I'm smiling from ear to ear.
I go by Scott Free. Here, I live in Atlanta. I've been living in Atlanta for the last 23 years now.
Jeez.
Born and raised in Miami, Florida.
Right.
Grew up around the hip hop culture. Grew up in the hip hop culture.
Clearly.
Not around it, in it. And I always say things like, I was discipled by Redman, Method Man.
Right.
And so with that came a lifestyle.
Hold on, not Two Live Crew?
Yeah, Two Live Crew. Luke, Two Live Crew, all of them.
For sure. Miami boy, y'all had.
But with that came, a lifestyle of seeking the world. You know what I mean? It just left me empty. And it wasn't until I moved to Atlanta that I had an encounter with the living Jesus. And it was a couple years after that I changed everything about myself. I changed how I dressed. I couldn't listen to rap music. I threw away all my DVDs of Juice and all the classics.
For sure, yeah.
Because it reminded me of who I used to be, and I hated who I used to be. And it wasn't till a few years after that that I met a guy who was involved in music ministry. This is like 2001.
Right.
That I started to get involved in what we now call Christian hip hop. But I realized like my gifting that the Lord gave me. I thought I used to rap, I used to DJ back then, I used to do all this stuff, but when I realized my gifting was to be, an evangelist, a shepherd, a leader. And when I would speak, people responded. You know what I mean? So I see people jumping around having fun with music, and that was great. I thought it was a great tool. So early on in my walk with the Lord, he showed me like music is a tool, an effective tool that we can utilize for the advancement of the kingdom on this earth. And so I started to share my testimony. I started to really learn how to preach the gospel because I didn't know how to do nothing.
That's amazing.
And just jumped in, both feet.
Man, that's so much I want to unpack, man.
Yeah.
Like, so you was, for those who are listening, tuning in, Scott is an evangelist, pastor, and has an organization called City Takers, but that's how many of me and my peers in Christian hip hop know him. And we'll get into all the details of that. But I think it'll be important for you to kind of share, how was your upbringing in Miami? Like, why did you come to Atlanta? How'd you get from Scott in Miami to now, like the City Takers head and evangelist and kind of streets ministry person that you are? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. How much time we got?
We can do a little. Give me a little bit.
So born and raised in Miami, and I think I was interesting story. When I was 12 years old, ministry used to come by my neighborhood on Friday nights and pick up a bunch of kids with skateboards. So this is like 1988.
Wow.
And I jumped on the bus one time, and it brought us to a church. And I'll never forget the feeling at 12 years old, like, man, they tricked me. Like, you know what I mean? I thought
really?
They said we're going to skate park. That's what it was. They were going to skate park, and we pull up to a church. And but to their benefit, they had like 50 ramps out there in the parking lot. It was a little.
This is 1988,
bro. 1988. I step off the bus. They're playing rap music, bro. Like they're playing like LL Cool J, Run DMC.
Really?
Like back when hip hop was, fairly. It had a lot of clean aspects to hip hop.
I know. Back then, way back then.
Way back.
Yeah.
And they had skateboard ramps and basketball.
Really?
I remember at one time they would call everybody. It's like 500 kids in this little tiny church parking lot. They would call everybody in. What I know now is a youth pastor would get up and share the gospel.
Wow.
And so when I was 12 and 13 years old, I heard the gospel for the first time. But what was funny was I was attracted to the music part and the guy DJing. So I got involved in DJing hip hop music like 1989, 1990.
Through that experience?
So
a church outreach program put you on to DJing hip hop?
Put me on to DJing and hip hop music, yeah. I mean, not necessarily hip hop, but the DJing.
DJ. But
And so my first
initial.
tape, I'll tell you my first tape. I remember it was Run DMC and Fat Boys.
Yo,
That's how long ago.
This is I didn't.
Yeah, nobody knows this.
That's why I like to ask these stories, because I'm
this.
like, that's such a like prophetic moment of what you would be doing now. Like
100%.
This is in 1980. What church was this?
88. It was called Sunset Chapel Assemblies of God.
What was the demographic or like cultural makeup?
So what was interesting was I didn't go to church there. This was a Friday night ministry
crazy.
that one of the, what I know now as a youth pastor, had buses go out into the neighborhoods in Miami, Florida, and pick a bunch of kids up. It's literally like 300 to 500 people on a Friday night.
No
at
way.
This church. Yeah.
And they're playing LL Cool J. They got DJs, turntables, food, games.
The whole joint.
And they're preaching the gospel to young kids.
Preaching
you
the
were
gospel
12 years old.
I was 12 years old. Yeah.
That's the first time you heard the gospel?
First time I heard the gospel ever. And here's the thing. I remember praying, asking Jesus into my life. I remember doing all the stuff, but I never knew him.
But a seed was planted.
You know what I mean? A seed 100% was planted. That gave birth 12 years after that.
Do you feel like
25 years old.
Do you feel like that church knew the?
No, they didn't, because I found the dude.
That's amazing.
Who was the pastor at the time, and he.
What was their vision like? And
so their vision,
this is very progressive,
very innovative, very progressive. And so when I talked to him, and this is probably like 10 years ago or so, he felt like a failure because a lot of the kids had passed away or in prison or you know what I mean, like just falling off. And I was so excited to tell him, I'm like, no, you're not a failure. Like, you never guess what I'm doing right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
what was his reaction like when you told him that?
I mean, I only spoke to him over Facebook. You know what I mean? He actually found me on Facebook. It was very interesting. And so, long story short, I never gave my life to the Lord, started DJing.
Sure.
You know what I mean? When I got in high school, and I was in high school 1990 to 95. And like, I was one of the only young hip hop DJs in my high school. And we were doing this is back when house parties were big. House parties, clubs were really big, and hip hop was literally on the upswing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Early 90s, they called it the golden era of hip hop. So I was blessed to be around that.
Sure.
You know what I mean? DJing in clubs, and Def Squad would show up, and these people would show up because I was in Miami.
Oh yeah, you was a hub, yeah.
So it was popping. And so when I was in high school, I was actually making money DJing. And so, but with that came, drinking, drugs, women, the whole nine.
Sure.
So I was engulfed in the culture
right
early on, making money. I bought I had a convertible Cadillac.
Yo, you was getting
at 16,
to it, boy.
17 years old, chain, medallion, whole nine.
Are there any pictures of this?
I think I do have some.
I just want to see it. I just want to see Scott Free with the medallion.
And then 18 years old, I ended up going to jail.
Okay.
At 18 years old in Miami, Florida, for a drug charge, and I was kind of in and out of jail at the age of 18. Then I got sent to a program. So I left school because to me it was like I was wasting my time in school because I'm making money. Doing hip hop music.
You dropped out of school.
Dropped out of school. I don't really share that a lot, but I'm sharing it now.
Sorry.
No, you good. I ended up going to a program called Job Corps because the court sent me to a program called Job Corps. I went from Miami to Asheville, North Carolina.
Okay.
Got a GED, got a trade, and then I'm going back to Miami and just getting in trouble again. You know what I mean? Like just a knucklehead getting in trouble. Long story short, my son Caleb, who a lot of people know here at Reach, who's 25 years old now, was born in 1998. And when I seen him born, I remember looking at him in the hospital like, I got to do something different with my life. And so I picked him up, and this is about a year later, and moved to Atlanta. And my first year in Atlanta, things got tough. And I'll never forget, I was in a U-Haul truck. A guy who had served time in prison was helping me move. He had tattoo sleeves down his arms. I didn't know him, and you know how it is, like letting another man in your house.
Oh yeah,
that you don't know.
You kind of like got that like
side
eye. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm watching him. I don't know this dude, but I needed the help, so he's loading up the U-Haul with me, and we get in, and he's like, "Do you mind if I ride with you? Do you need help unloading?" I'm like, "Yeah, I need help unloading." So he rides with me, and he starts sharing his testimony, kind of like I'm sharing right now. And he's like, "Man, I went to prison, and I used to go to church in prison." And he said one night after church, he gets down on his face in the prison cell, the dirty floor, and he starts praying to God. And this is what made me. So I'm listening to this the whole time, and I'm like, whatever, bro. I just, you know what I mean? I'm just like, I just want to get where we're going and unload the stuff. And he's like, Jesus walks into the cell. Now this is 23 years ago. I'm in a U-Haul truck,
You with a strange man.
Right, with a guy I don't know, and he's talking about Jesus walks into his jail cell.
Wow.
I'm like, man, whatever, bro. Like, you know what I mean? In my mind, I'm just checked out. And he's sitting, U-Haul truck has a bench seat, so he's sitting 2 feet from me, talking to me like I'm talking to you. And he starts telling me that, he's like, Jesus is telling me that on this date, I'm going to get out of prison. I'm going to meet my wife. I'm calling you in the ministry. And he's like, all this stuff. And he says, on the exact date that Jesus said I was getting out, I got out of prison. He's like, I walk into a Blockbuster video. This is how old the story is, right? And he's like, and he points at a God shows him a woman. That's your wife. He asks her out. He starts dating her, marries the woman, gets called into ministry. And so I'm like, I stop at a red light, bro. This is crazy. So I stop at a red light. And I thought in my mind, I wonder if Jesus, because it's not that I was an atheist.
Right. You had an idea.
I had an idea who Jesus is, right? But it's not that I didn't necessarily believe. I just didn't know him. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of people out here right now that, you know what I mean? Like, you might know of Jesus, you just don't know him.
Right.
And so I thought for a half a second, I wonder if Jesus would do the same thing for me.
You said that to yourself?
In my mind. I was like, I wonder, because I'm hearing this. I said, I wonder if Jesus would do the same thing for me. And in that moment, I stopped at a red light. I had this vision of literally every time that God saved my life. And I didn't know that he saved my life till this moment. I seen where my life could have been taken from me, like a vision of it in my mind, like a movie reel.
Sure.
Like boom, 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 all these different times that I could have lost my physical life. But I knew that God, in the vision, I knew that God the Father had saved my life.
That's amazing, man.
And then at the end of the vision, I see myself as a 12-year-old boy with a skateboard in my hand getting on a bus.
Which was harks back to the, points back to the
for the first time in my life, I'm 25 years old, I heard God speak to me, and he said, Scott, after the vision of myself getting on this bus on a Friday night, he said, Scott, I've been pursuing you this whole time.
That's amazing,
And
man.
I woke up to a car honking in back of me, right? And this guy's still talking to me, right? Ministering to me at this point, and I got afraid because I realized I've been crying at the red light. So there's tears running down my cheek. There's tears on my so I'm wiping my tears off my face. My heart is pounding in my chest, right? And in that moment, this was the year 2000, the Lord just radically saved my life. So for me, bro, it was like I walked away from everything, delivered from everything. And it was a few years after that I got involved in music, you know what I mean? I realized that God wanted to use me in the context of specifically hip hop. He pulled me out of it. And so now he wanted me to go back into the culture that he pulled me out of. Yeah. But it took a few years because for me, he had to change the thing between my ears.
Sure.
He had to change my mind about a lot of things in order to put me back into, you know what I mean, be a seed of the kingdom.
That's dope. So you basically, this gives full great context, man, because City Takers is a phenomenal organization that you started here in Atlanta, which you can share more about. But to know where you came from and to hear what you got into, what you're doing now makes so much sense. So why don't you just tell the people, man, a little bit about how you started City Takers, what you guys do, and all the little bells and whistles about the greatness. You know what I'm saying?
So for the first 5 years of my walk with the Lord, I was just serving, faithfully serving. You know what I mean? Like people always ask me, how'd you start City Takers? I'm like, I served my home church for 10 years.
Oh, talk. Can you?
And then
can
people,
I retweet that?
Yeah. People always walk away with their head down. Like I think about it like the rich young ruler story, right? It's like,
for sure.
We want the microwave ministry, but there's no such thing as, I always say it like this, there is no elevator in the kingdom, there's only a staircase.
That's fair.
And you got to take one step at a time to get where God is taking you. So for me, like I just started to serve faithfully at my home church, which my home church ended up being the church that dude in the U-Haul truck attended. He's the one that invited me to church. And I started to go to church with him. And, from there it was a wrap. So I just started to serve, man. I started to get involved in anything. Right. Like, you know how when you young Christian, like you on fire for the Lord, you got that zeal.
That zeal.
I was at everything.
Oh, but you was on 10.
I was on 10. I was on Sunday night. They had church.
Were you in the hip hop element that you are now, or you were kind of more like...
Bro, so when I first got saved, I started to dress business.
That's like
I changed everything about me. Again, I don't think necessarily everybody should do that or has to do that. I had to do that.
I understand, because you was in the nightclubs and
I was all
you had to kind of go cold turkey.
I had to go cold turkey on everything. So dress was a part of the culture.
Sure.
Like how I'm dressed right now, I didn't dress when I first got saved.
You had on you like
I had
button up,
slacks,
button up, some penny loafers. I'm just kidding.
Hold on. So, but at the same time, people at my home church started to see something in me that I didn't see in myself.
Okay.
And so they started to kind of pull me in. Like I would go to like a Sunday night service and people would be like, hey man, you hungry? Let's go eat. And these were like the pastors of a pretty large church in Atlanta. And so we would go eat together. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm just going to go eat with my pastor, right? It's no big deal. But you know what I mean? Like realizing now, like just the favor that God had on my life early on in my walk with him.
Right.
It was just men and different people started to pour into my life. I'll give you another example. We were doing street ministry downtown Atlanta, building a playground in one of the projects.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the outreach. We're going to have a barbecue, build a playground, you know what I mean? And just bless the community. So I was involved early on in my walk. I was involved in what I would call a healthy church, doing healthy ministry around the city. Does that make sense? And so I just signed up to volunteer. So I remember I had a wheelbarrow in my hand and it was like a bunch of mulch and I'm wheeling mulch like, I don't know, 100 yards down to where we were going to build the thing. And I remember telling God, I'm like, Lord, like, this isn't me. You know what I mean? Like, I love it and I'm going to serve, I'm going to do it. But you know what I mean? Like, and I'll never forget, there was this old white man with white hair, gray. I mean, he had to be in his 70s or 80s. He's like, hey, I'm looking for people to go to door with me. We're going to invite people out to the barbecue. Who wants to come? And nobody was volunteering because we're in the projects. Oh. This is the year 2001. This is all the projects were still in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, shoot, I just want to get out of not carrying the mulch. I'll go. And so we're walking around the projects downtown Atlanta. Again, I'm a little weird because I'm a white man. And then he's a white old man with white hair, but being super bold. Like, hey, guys, come on out. We're doing it. You know what I mean? I'm like, so I'm trying to stay 10 feet back from him. Like, I'm with him, but I don't know, you know. Anyways, long story short, as we're passing people, and this would happen my whole life. People would always like acknowledge me. You know what I mean? They'd be like, either give me a head nod or, you know what I mean? If I go to fist bump somebody, they'll fist bump me. And then this dude looked at me. I'll never forget this. He looked at me. He's like, bro, these people respect you. Have you ever thought about doing more stuff like this? And I hadn't, you know what I mean? I'm like, nah. He's like, bro, I think you should. He didn't say bro. He's like, I think you should, you know what I mean? Like, pay attention
right,
to, you know what I mean, this type of stuff, you know what I mean? Because it's something you carry that people acknowledge.
That's so good, man. So it's like City Takers was birthed out of that, somebody seeing it, calling it, and I would love to get more into on the next segment, man, like all the details. 'Cause you guys do so much great stuff that I've seen. Yeah. I would love to like.
Yeah, I would love to talk about it. I want to break it all down for sure.
For sure. This is the 116 Life on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius Channel 154. I'm your host, Ace Harris, here with my man, Scott Free. Stay tuned and we'll get more into it after the break. Welcome back. This is the 116 Life on Holy Culture Radio on Sirius Channel 154. I'm your host, Ace Harris, here with my man,
Scott Free.
Yeah. He says like he's definitely been a DJ, you know what I'm saying? He got that hip hop factor all day. So back we were talking about backstory on, you know, your testimony, your journey to Christ, and your starting this City Takers movement, which you said wasn't something that you had planned out to do, but it kind of sought you. And for the people that don't know, what is City Takers? What do you guys do, and some of the things you have going on? Yeah,
I always say it's a missional church movement. And why I say church is because church is what Jesus established 2,000 years ago as an answer to a dying and broken world. And I think the traditional model of the church has been Sunday morning driven, but that's just a very small picture of the fullness thereof of who she is, aka the church. And God showed me like all the stuff we've been doing, you know what I mean? Anytime we're gathering people around the word of God, it's church.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whether it's 2 people, whether it's 200 or 2,000, it's church. And so we started out early on in 2006. You know, I've been serving. And I just started, again, through people pouring into me and discipling me. I had a heart to reach who the church necessarily wasn't reaching. And so we were going to areas where we felt like the gates of hell were prevailing. Right. And putting the flag of the kingdom, you know what I mean? Like pushing the kingdom of God. And whether that was the jails, whether that was the homeless shelters, whether that was the drug rehab centers. So early on, those are the areas I started to serve in. And in 2006, we launched a nonprofit. It wasn't called City Takers at the time. It was called Freestyle Missions. And freestyle is basically based on freestyle rap. Right. And we realized, like, with freestyle rap, back in the days, it was made up rap. It was like off the top of the dome. Now I think freestyle is a different
Yeah, it's just,
term.
it's just rap your pre-written
We ain't going
verses.
there.
Rap your pre-written verses on a
right. But so for me,
yeah.
it was bigger than the program. It was bigger than what was written.
Gotcha.
It was Holy Spirit using men and women
Yeah.
in the context of lifestyle,
Right.
not event driven. And so early on, I had a heart to really train and equip people to live out the fullness thereof of what the Lord is doing in and through them in the context of their job, their school, their neighborhood, their workplace. And so we just started to do that all over the city of Atlanta. And what was happening, we're doing block parties in the hood, we're doing stuff in the jails, we're doing stuff on college campuses, and we were using hip hop music to do that.
What kind? We was using Christian hip hop.
Christian hip hop music to do that.
So you was a big advocate of Christian hip hop.
Oh yeah, and early on,
That's
my
amazing.
walk was huge. And then Christian hip hop wasn't where it is today.
Sure,
So it was quite interesting.
It was more underground then.
It was either more underground or it wasn't really even that dope. Like a lot of it was, you know what I mean? Like not as dope
artistically, you know
what I mean? It was about 10 years behind.
Yeah,
kind of where the world was.
Where the world was.
But there was a lot of dope artists.
No,
you know what I
for
mean?
sure.
At the same time. So we were giving platforms to artists that, you know what I mean, would never be given platforms
to go out to perform at these events and minister to the people you guys were touching. That's
100%.
interesting because some may know, I was actually one of those artists that was starting a group, and I was maybe not with the best of intentions. I heard about City Takers in Atlanta. It was like making a lot of headways in terms of doing events and mission groups and all these things. So if you were an artist and you wanted a place to serve and or perform, which we get into the why, but hey, God uses all of it. And somebody connected me to Scott Free, and we sat down, we met, and I was thinking, how can I get involved with City Takers? And that sparked, some conversations. And I don't think nothing materialized at that moment. But later on, when I became a youth leader at my church at like 23, 24, I brought my youth to the City Takers events on Fridays all the time because I knew it was a tool to help especially some of my more like guarded kids that were like, man, I'm at church, my mama bring me, and I ain't really about this like Jesus thing.
Yeah.
I found that City Takers was one of the better safe spaces for youth to engage God in a way where hip hop was like out in front. You know what I'm saying? So we would
100%.
I would take a group of kids all the way from like Cleveland Avenue and some like Liberian refugee kids, and we'd come like 30 deep many times. So City Takers was a well-known thing in Atlanta.
Yeah.
That's how I got to know Scott. And I think you're obviously very humble in this, but City Takers is a well-known thing in Christian hip hop. And I don't think people realize how many Christian hip hop artists, like considering our platform, 116 Life, with faith, culture, and music.
Yeah.
And then some people will argue, where's the ministry side? But it's interwoven when you look at the starting point. A lot of these artists, ministry and music were so intersected. And a lot of people don't know this, Scott, but it seems like with City Takers, have been a gateway or a starting point for a lot of Christian hip hop artists that are now mainstage names at this point. Talk a little bit about how City Takers has been a bridge for Christian hip hop artists to serve, learn, and grow, and help you kind of start the career.
Yeah, I would love. So in 06 to 09, we were just doing all these outreach events.
Yeah.
And people were encountering the Lord. People were being delivered, set free in the neighborhoods, and everybody was always like, "Man, where's your church? We want to go to your church." Oh. All of us went to different churches. Like our whole team had different home churches, but nobody was excited about inviting people to their church. You know what I mean? Nobody's excited inviting the world into their church because their church was probably a more traditional, culturally different, you know what I mean? And no matter what church we went to, it wasn't going to look like us. That makes sense? There wasn't going to be rap music on the stage. There wasn't going to be, you know what I mean, people in J's and hats on the stage. Like it was just culturally different. So that's when we started the City Takers experience on the Friday nights.
Gotcha.
Our first one was January 2010.
Wow.
The third one that we actually had Reach come out. We had Tadashi, Lecrae came, and a bunch of other. That was March 2010.
Wow, that's crazy.
That was the third event that we pulled off. And we did it from January 2010 till February 2020 till COVID hit. Wow. Every last Friday. We never missed one for 10 years straight.
That's
so
amazing,
it was the longest running Christian hip hop event in the nation, like consistent. And we still do it. We just haven't done it back every month.
Sure.
Saying that to say, I've always had a heart to give platform to marginalized voices, meaning people who are sitting in churches, people are sitting in communities who nobody would ever hear because you don't got the network, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Maybe they're poor or they're from a marginalized community. And so literally I wanted to create platforms, you know, in the city of Atlanta that will position people to be heard. That's what hip hop's about, right? It's about hearing the story. Like, you know what I mean? It's
For sure.
It's poetry of the streets. It's like, you know, and so especially that glorifies God.
Sure.
And so in 2010, we just started to use, you know what I mean, local artists, or even before that in outreach. But then when we started to do the monthly events, you know what I mean? Like it was a larger platform, and that's when it really started to take off, because that's when people were starting to see, you know what I mean? Like God really start to move in the context of church.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like the street stuff, people liked it, but not a lot of people are gonna get involved in it, and that's okay. But when you know what I mean? We did an event on the last Friday of the month. Man, we started to see, the first one was like 50 people. The second one was like 300 people. By the third one, we had like 700-800 people, and it grew really fast. We would sometimes have 800-900 people on a Friday night
to hear
worshiping God, and we would do worship right in the middle of it. If you remember, we would have a band. We do worship. I come out, preach the gospel, do a big altar call. We went in. Holy Spirit show up.
You guys were literally like the name, like City Takers. You guys were intentional about. It wasn't just a cool name to have.
Yeah. So I to go back to the question, I always loved, you know what I mean, like giving artists these platforms, especially the artists with the right heart. And that's what good. I would always look for.
For sure.
It's like, it's one thing for artists to be like trying to get on and try to leverage the platform, you know what I mean, for their gain and benefit. But the ones who are willing to serve, the ones who are willing to, you know what I mean, get out there with you and love our neighbors.
Yeah.
I remember RG, bring up an artist, bro. We were doing a block party in Marietta, Georgia, in one of the apartments. And I forget, I remember candy. We were throwing out candy. I think it was probably a Halloween thing. And he was like, I rap. And he was like, he'll tell you the age, but he couldn't have been 13, 14 years old.
Crazy.
Maybe 12. Like he was a young kid. What's your name? RG. And all right, bro, like, you want to rap? And then I made him, like, after he rapped, I made him share a prayer or a message, translated what I was saying in Spanish.
For the community.
Community to hear. So you know what I mean? I pulled them in to translate, you know what I mean? Or share the gospel in Spanish because it was a Hispanic community.
Talk about, and then you also had, I know, like, I feel like 1K Few, Big Bree, a lot of people were walking through those City Takers doors before they were like signed up.
Yeah, I remember Few when he was 14, 15 years old, you know what I mean? Then he became Future Kid. A lot of people don't know that. Future Kid, and we gave him the platform several times as Future Kid to perform and the rap. And I remember the whole process of going to 1K and 1K Few, all of that. I walked with.
Talk about, I think you had some interaction with Hovey.
Yeah.
Like, talk about, like, how'd you meet?
So Hovey, interesting story. His mom and dad used to serve with City Takers.
Really?
10 plus years ago, probably 14 years ago. When we were doing stuff in the streets with the homeless, we were doing homeless church services, homeless outreach. His mom and dad used to come down and serve. They lived in North Georgia somewhere. And I mean, Hovey, when I met him, he was probably 7 or 8 years old.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So his parents used to bring him to serve, you know, at the City Takers outreaches on the streets. And then, you know, of course, we lost touch years later. And I had Hovey hit me up on Instagram. He's like, hey, bro, I'm moving to Atlanta. And again, this is 14 years later, right? This is like, I had no idea who he was. He's like, I'm moving to Atlanta. My pops told me to hit you up. And then so I click on, you know, and I try to respond to all my DMs if I could. I click on his page and I'm like, okay, another rapper, you know what I mean? Moving to Atlanta. And he had all these little kind of music videos. I was like, that's cool. Hit me up when you get here. Like, you know what I mean? And again, I'm not knocking it. Like, I love on everybody the same. And so he's like, cool. So he hits me up when he moved here. The day he moved here, he hit me up. He's like, hey, bro, I'm in Atlanta. And I'm like, all right. I still don't know who this kid is, right? And I'm like, he's like, can we meet? I'm like, sure. I'm going to get a smoothie right now. Meet me here. And he's like, okay, cool. That's only 5 minutes from me. This is right by my house.
Crazy.
So he moved with an aunt that lived 4 minutes from my house. Out of all of Atlanta, God put him 4 minutes from my house. He meets me. He's like, you don't know who I am, right? I'm like, help me out. Like, you know what I mean? He's like, and he started to tell me who his parents were.
Wow.
And it dawned on me who his parents were. I was like, oh my God, you the little kid.
That's
you know
crazy.
what I mean? And so, so we just started to build, bro. And he said this, he said his dad once, because Hovey dropped out of college.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Based on what the Lord was saying to move to Atlanta. His dad's like, okay, you can go, but the only way you go is you need to hit up Scott Free when you get to Atlanta. And so he was obedient to what his father had asked him to do. You know what I mean? I looked out from day one, and especially once I realized who he was. I knew his dad. His dad called me. I talked to his dad. He's like, please look out for my son. I forget how old Hovey was when he moved here, 19, something like that, teenager. I was like, I got you, you know what I mean? And so it wasn't long after that he started to serve with us. He started to come to our church. It wasn't long after that before his living situation had to change.
Right.
And he was worried about going back to Brunswick, Georgia. That's where his family moved. And I felt the Lord was like, no, I want, bring him into your house. And so we brought Hovey in our house 6 months after he moved here.
Fuck, he recorded some songs there that we did.
He did, bro. Like he was writing,
during COVID time.
During COVID time, he went through COVID with us. Yeah,
that's
he
crazy.
Lived there the year before, and then during COVID, yeah. So it's really dope.
That's super. I mean, I think just to kind of like recap, something I've said and I'm seeing in you is like, City Takers, the mission that God, laid on your heart. I think it's just good for people to know the undercurrent of like Christian hip hop and service and ministry. Like a lot of artists that are like some of y'all's favorite artists started serving through City Takers.
Yeah,
and it's not even about like that City Takers is here to blow up artists. I'm just saying like you have got to see people who have like amazing kingdom platforms now. You've got to see them at an early stage in their walk and at their service level, and now you had a small part to play in like their spiritual maturation
100%.
and development. I think that's super dope. But not even that. I feel like there's other artists, not just hip hop, even like worship artists that you've had a really big hand in. Which we can get on the next segment.
Yeah.
Which I know you're humble, but I think it would be dope for people just to hear the hand that ministry and missions and that outreach serves in the music space, which is such a great joy to my soul. I always joke with Scott how like, the plaques and Grammys is cool, but I feel like this brother's gonna have his rewards in heaven, 10x, you know what I'm saying? All that. So stay tuned, man. The next segment we can get into some of your work with Maverick City and all the other things that City Takers is doing and kind of some of your next steps and vision. So
cool.
This is the 116 Life on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius Channel 154. I'm your host, Ace Harris. This is my man, Scott Free. Let's get into it. Stay tuned. This is the 116 Life on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius Channel 154. I am your host, Ace Harris. This is my man, Scott Free in the building.
Yeah.
How you feeling, bro?
I feel great, bro.
Man, this is
honored to be here.
That's super dope, man. For those who've been catching up, man, we've been talking about City Takers, backstory, how you got into the faith, and then how you've been a gateway for a lot of Christian hip hop artists before they were had a platform. But you've also done recently some amazing work with Grammy Award-winning group Maverick City. You went on tour with them on their tour with Kirk Franklin.
Yeah.
Talk to the people about, how you got involved with them, what you guys did, and how you was able to kind of, connect some dots for ministry. Like music and ministry need to coexist, and why that's important.
Yeah, so it's a really dope story. I actually got involved with them by one of my guys who I poured into, right? Like a Hovey. His name's CJ.
Okay.
I actually moved CJ into my house.
CJ King?
Before, no, not CJ King, CJ Rumsey.
Okay.
This was before Hovey.
Okay.
Right? So he lived with me from, can't remember the years, I think it's 2016, 2017. Long story short, this is a kid who just walked into City Takers one day, smoking weed, liked hip hop music, rapped, you know what I mean? And just, the Lord always like brings me what I like to call the knuckleheads. But I have such a heart for them because I was that guy. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And so I just bring them close. And I'm not saying moving people in your house is the right thing to do to bring them close.
Yo,
but that's a whole other,
Shout out your wife.
Yeah, praise God for my wife. She's amazing. But long story short, poured into him, his life radically changed. Like he is an urban missionary all the way right now, serving in the inner city, teaching at a school. I mean, this kid, I married him. He now has 2 babies, baptized him. Like, you know what I mean? Like literally stuff that you see, you know what I mean? Like in the scriptures was really lived out in his life. I remember celebrating his soberness, 1 year sober in my house. But that type of ministry is messy. And I think that's why a lot of people don't do that type of stuff because it's very
good,
messy.
Scott. That's good,
and
Scott.
It's very like, you know what I mean? You just got to walk with people.
Not preach at them?
Not preach out, walk with them. And I always say, you know how to spell discipleship? Time. That's how you spell discipleship. And that's what nobody wants to do.
We just drop the mic.
Yeah, that's what
just pause on that, because I think.
Yeah, and so long story short, I did that with this kid, CJ. In that season, his brother was in a band. His older brother was in a band called House Fires. Playing in the band, they wrote a song called Good, Good Father. Blew up. You're a good, good father, right? And so it was in that season that they started to realize like a lot of their events they were doing, a lot of music they were doing was very, impacting the white church. And CJ and his brother have the same mom. She's white, and they have black dads, different dads, but they're both black. Mom was in and out of prison their whole lives. Neither of them really had a relationship with their fathers. And so he wanted to, start these writing camps where you started to bring different genres together that would write music, produce music together and write music together. But it would be like, a white CCM artist and a black gospel artist, like get them in the same room, write music and see what comes out of that.
That's dope.
So that was the beginning of what we know now as Maverick City Music. In that season, 2019, he had a heart to get into the prisons and to impact kids who grew up like him, who, you know what I mean? Like his mom and CJ's mom was in and out of prison. So CJ was like, we just got to call Scott. Scott's already impacting kids in the communities where, you know what I mean, that their parents are incarcerated or family members are incarcerated, and he does prison. So they hit me up. We start walking through the process of like getting into prisons, and then COVID hits.
Oh, gotcha.
The whole world shuts down.
Right.
And so I got Maverick City Music into their first prison. I think it was late 2020. We went down South Georgia somewhere, and we had everybody come. Naomi, Brandon, Chandler, whole nine. And for the first time, like they're worshiping prison yard full of prisoners, and I got to preach the gospel. And I think this was the first time they seen me preach, And I preached the word, and man, it was just powerful. You know what I mean? Like we got Maverick doing worship. I'm preaching the gospel.
Right.
And it was like Jesus standing in the middle of the prison yard.
That's crazy.
And so we left that prison, and they were like, man, we want to do more of this. Like, this is what we want to do.
Right.
And then this crazy idea came, what if we recorded an album in a prison? And in my mind, I was like, that'll probably not happen. You know what I mean?
What made you think
but
that?
I was like, just because there's just too many.
A lot of red tape to
There's tons of red tape in the prisons. Tons of red tape. And then, you're going to take something that's produced and take it out here and push it to the world. But long story short, I said, man, I'll try. All they could do is say no, right? I'm not willing to step out and take a risk. So I started to get with different organizations, get with Department of Corrections, and long story short, we end up recording an album, or they recorded an album down in Miami, Florida at Everglades prison, maximum security prison. Spent a week with the guys, writing music together, singing together, and the album called Kingdom came out of that. And I got to, not only be a part of that, but then on the tour, the Kingdom tour with Kirk Franklin, there was a huge push, and you even visually had the prisoners singing on the screens.
I didn't know that.
Throughout the whole tour. And so every city, and I got the opportunity to stand up and talk about what we had been doing in the prisons. And so I got the opportunity to talk to the Capital Seat Church, 20,000 people a night, about Matthew chapter 25, which is, when I was naked, did you clothe me? When I was hungry, did you give me food? When I was in prison, did you visit me? When did we see you in prison? When did we see you hungry? When you did it unto one of the least of these, you've done it unto me. So the ministry of City Takers is a ministry unto God's heart, is a ministry unto Jesus, because it's a ministry unto the least of these. And so I got the opportunity to kind of lead the church, in a sense, into pushing them to, you know what I mean? Look out for the orphan, look out for the widow, look out after the poor, look after the marginalized, look after those in the prison. Sure. And so it was an amazing, amazing season, bro. Like real talk.
So I think what's so dope is, from a music standpoint and ministry standpoint, the song and the album being called Kingdom. Yeah. And to see those faces in the video, just belting out to the Lord. Yeah. In a maximum security prison. Yeah. Worshiping together. I think it was a great picture. It was a great moment, I think,
it was
in culture.
It was an amazing moment,
and the fact that you had a hand to play in that.
Yeah, and it's still having an impact. I get texts and calls. Really? Oh, yeah, bro, like all over the nation. Like I think it shook the nation. It shook the church, in a good way. Yeah. It's like, hey, what are we really doing?
Come on.
This has to go beyond the platform. This has to go beyond, the arenas. It has to go beyond.
We got to go to the marginalized, to the places where, and I'm sure the prisoners were just.
Oh, bro, I had one guy come up to me and hug me, and he was in tears. He was weeping on my shoulders, like violently weeping. Grabbed me, and this dude felt like, I don't know, bro, like, I mean, he was like a brick wall. You know what I mean? He was like hardcore, like he said he'd been in prison for 32 years. And he's weeping on my shoulder, and he's shaking me, Scott, you don't know. And I'm like, what's, you know what I mean? I'm like, all right, well, tell me, what's going on? He's like, for the first time in 32 years, I forgot I was in prison. Wow. And I was like, the first thing that came to my heart was, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom, right? And so, bro, we're standing in a maximum security yard with 1,400 men. This man shaking me violently. He's like, I forgot I was in prison for the first time in 32 years. And I was like, yo. And then I thought about, like, how many other people are in prison, but maybe not physically, but prison emotionally, prison mentally, prison spiritually. You know what I mean? That the Spirit of God could come and dwell in them, and they could break free from whatever it is that they're in prison.
I mean, I think that's super. It's just great to hear that moment. I mean, even in light of what we do here, it just causes me to think, okay, I mean, the 116, music, faith, culture. Yeah. And I think on the culture side, maybe we lean too much on what mainstream culture is doing and forget about that Matthew 25 verse about, culture encompasses the prisoner, the widow, the orphan, the marginalized. And
Kingdom culture does, yes.
Kingdom culture does.
Yes.
And if we're really engaging kingdom culture, how dare we not go into those spaces and make our faith and our love, our faith known, our love shown. And I think you're doing a great job at that, man.
I appreciate it, man.
So talk to us about even stepping outside of that moment, like what's going on now with City Takers. I believe obviously you pastor a church, like the name of all that's going on. Like what's on your heart as a vision for going forward with everything? Because you've been doing it for a while, so it's like
I'll tell you what's on my heart. It's been on my heart since we launched it. Is multiplication of City Takers all around the nation. Mm-hmm. And this has been a slow roll because it'd be easy for me to be like, all right, you get one, and to throw it out and it just not be effective.
Sure.
The only thing I want to do is effective ministry where lives are being transformed. People are encountering Jesus. People are being discipled, you know what I mean? And discipling other people. And so for us, we're in a season now of multiplication. And so we launched our first mission base in Southwest Florida.
Okay.
We did that a year ago.
Okay.
So we have a mission base that is doing missional church. What does that mean? That means anything outside the walls of the church where they're gathering people amongst the poor, marginalized, or in prison. You know what I mean?
Church.
Like love, it's gathering 2 or more people around the Word of God. It's church. And so we're calling it missional church. We used to call everything outreaches. It would still call things outreaches if it's like a one-off thing or, it's not consistent. Anything that's consistently gathering people where people already dwell and gather.
Not bringing them into another.
So it's less of a consumer-driven mindset, meaning like come to us, right?
Right.
And we're going to have church. It's more like we're going to take the church to the people.
That's dope.
And we're going to gather. And it could be in somebody's house. It could be at a coffee shop. It could be... we set up 200 chairs off of Peachtree Street and do church on Monday nights.
You've been there. I've served with you. Yeah. It's like...
And we have church. And those men and women and children are not going to any other church.
Fact. But they had church.
We had church.
They got to encounter the gospel.
And then we go back consistently. And I think that's the key to it. Is consistency is key.
So you're saying you don't do it as a one flash pan moment to get a pat on the back and to say, look at what we did? I'm sorry. You're being real. You be real. This is like this is for me too, like consistent gatherings, consistent missional, like there is no checkpoint of like, whoa, this is done now. This is life.
No, you never arrive.
You said how do you spell discipleship again?
Time. Come on, bro. That's a word for somebody. And I always think like this. Yeah. Me and my wife love cruises, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been on a cruise ship before. The moment you step on the boat, somebody's there handing you a drink. They're there to serve you. They're make sure you have a good time. All the entertainment is there, right? They want to make sure that you come back.
Right.
Right? Because it's vacation mode. And the Lord showed me kind of a lot of church, especially in America, is kind of driven of it's like a cruise ship, right? Somebody's holding the door, welcome you, make sure that you feel, you know what I mean? Like have a good time there so that you could come back to church. And God showed me a different type of ship. He showed me a battleship, right? It's still a ship, but every person on a battleship has a purpose. Every person, from the guy who sweeps the floor, the guy who cooks the food, the guy who loads the missiles up in the guns, to the guy driving the ship. Every person on that ship has a purpose. And he says, my church has become like a cruise ship, but it's really like a battleship. You got to train each person on how to do their job. And every time that ship leaves the port, it's not on vacation, it's on mission. And lives are at stake.
Right.
Lives are at stake.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So when I think of church, I think of it like that. It's like very missional. Right? Lives are at stake. Like people are dying and going to hell, eternally separated from the Father. People that I know and I love. You know what I mean? Now, it's not on me to save them, but it is on me to love them. It is on me to share truth to them.
Share truth, yeah. And
at the end of the day, that's what we do. You know what I mean? In the context of life. And so I have a heart to teach people how to live this thing out as a lifestyle, not an event. Because I think we're all into events because we want the platform, we want the position, we want the prestige, we want the title, because we want people to look at us. But it's not about us, right? We want people to look at Him.
That's
and
good.
When people
bro.
encounter Him, you know what I mean, they could be set free from all of that junk. Like, a lot of things we want is based on our own insecurities and our own upbringing. You know what I mean? We want people to notice us.
Sure, absolutely.
To honor us, but the reality is, like, man, we got to lay our lives down as living sacrifices. It's all or none.
And you in that battleship.
And you on that battleship.
You're putting your life on the line.
And you're gonna get hit.
You're gonna get hit.
This
ain't no cruise ship, is it?
It ain't a cruise ship, bro.
Man, well, on that note, man, I think this ship, got to keep going forward, man. And it's been fun hearing about someone who is, you know what I'm saying, kind of like navigating those murky waters.
That's what it is, man.
Trying to make effective impact. And I think a lot has been shared that I hope people can go home and take away something about, to help us, reconsider, rethink, reimagine, to reclaim what it really means to be missional.
Yeah. And I would love to help anybody.
Sure.
Real talk. Like, they can follow City Takers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They can follow me.
Tell them where they can get the information.
On Instagram, I am Scott Free. That's mine. And then City Takers is City Takers on all social platforms. citytakers.com is the website. There's ways to plug in. There's volunteer forms. Right. And again, we're in a season of multiplication. So pretty soon, right around the corner, we're going to have some training stuff happening where people can, be trained on how to live out this missional lifestyle.
And how can people support and give? And
citytakers.com,
okay.
You could donate.
Okay.
We 100% rely on people's donations to do what we do.
Okay.
And, where God guides, God provides, right? But He still uses people like me and you, His children, to provide, to bring
That's
the provision.
amazing, man. Well, it's been really great talking with you, man. And
Word.
I mean, I know we got a lot to keep talking about and building, but this is the 116 Life on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius Channel 154. I'm your host, Ace Harris, and wrapping up this conversation with the amazing Scott Free.
Thank you, bro.
And catch y'all next time.